3 years ago, my life went in a completely different direction than what I had thought. This journey, my own surrender experiment, is all about learning control and flow. Most entrepreneurs are taught about control everything. But life, it rarely works out that way. It sounds easy to just be in flow, right? Be in flow with the universe and just surrender. But living in reality is not always that easy. We've got responsibility. There's school fees, there's lifestyle that we want to maintain, there's holidays we want to go to, there's a family to support. Money is still the fuel of our society. The real question is, how do you surrender to life when you have all these responsibilities? And for me, like during my awakening journey over the last 6-7 years, the book, The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, had been the biggest bridge or inspiration on how do I transition from an achiever, an entrepreneur, to someone to just surrender. And if you don't know about that book, it talks about Michael Singer, his life in his early 20s while he's still studying. All he wants to do is just to meditate in the woods. He went through explaining how he just surrendered one thing to the next. And to cut the story short, it led him to building a $1 billion tech company. And at that time, I thought, man, if I can just surrender and build like even a bigger company, bigger business, I can still keep my identity and the lifestyle that goes with it, and yet have this spiritual side, that will be a good marriage, right? That had been the underlying philosophy that helped me with this transition of my identity. Someone that used to just go and achieve. And I knew that wasn't giving me what I needed. Because so what if I achieved more? And what if I just grind my way through? That's not the life that I want to live. That's not the person I wanted to be. I wanted to find more joy, more freedom internally. If you watch my podcast over the last 5 years, you will see some of my teachers and inspiration and evolutions and what are some of the ideas and practice that I've used to get there. But over the last 3 years since my last update video, I shared there was a calling one day for me to scroll on LinkedIn and it was recommending a job, and I've never worked anywhere full time. And so I clicked on apply for that job, and within a week, I got that job. And that was the last video I shared on my personal update on what's happening in my life. And now I want to, in this video, share with you not just about what happened to me, but about my own surrender experiments. Playing around with surrender or control versus flow. How does that all work? So, when I worked for that tech startup, I remember the very first day. I thought the proper thing to do is get there early, right? Rather than just getting there on time. I get there around 8:30, thinking that, hey, cool, I'm early. I get myself prepared. And when I got there, it's like, well, everyone is already there. And so, wow, okay, cool. And I got through the day and wow, it was pretty full on the first day. It's fine. And around 5:30, I'm looking at my watch. Hey, is it time to go? Startup culture, we had the ambition to $1 billion company, $1 billion valuation within the next 3 years. And the founder is amazing visionary and executor as well. He had a great plan on how to get there. I learned a lot from him. The team members, nobody had kids. So at 6 o'clock, I'm thinking, man, I want to go back to have dinner with my kids, and it'll take me roughly an hour to get home. And usually they have dinner at 6, maybe 6:30. So yeah, like I was operating at a different rhythm. And from that day onwards, I really appreciated the journey of catching the bus. It's the first time I commute by public transport to work. And so, wow, this is how everyone catch public transport. And it was during COVID as well, and I caught COVID being in public transport and whatnot. It's wow, this is how everyone else might live. I start to appreciate how good I have it in my own life that I didn't even realize. Wow, this is the real hustle that most people go through. And I had a newfound appreciation for everyone that's going through that journey, a deeper sense of compassion that it can be such a grind, but yet you have to keep showing up. So after 3 months, somehow magically on both sides, they just came to a natural conclusion. There's something that the company no longer supporting the platform. It basically got the rug pulled under them and they have to restart again. So as a result, it was a natural transition that they have to operate more lean, and which is perfectly fine for me because I felt like I've delivered what I needed to, and it served them for the period. It helped them grow the company from a marketing perspective. That was my role. So after that, I said, well, what do I do next? And then somehow the idea of doing a fractional roles as a fractional CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, that came to mind. And I started going out and eventually found a couple of clients on and off here and there. But those clients then led me to become the fractional CEO for a mindfulness company. And that person, his name is Sean Fargo, that leads a mindfulness exercise. He used to be a Buddhist monk for a few years, and I really connected with Sean. He's such a beautiful man, beautiful teaching, and the organization has certain challenges at the time in wanting to scale. My skill set was perfect because Sean is the teacher. It's about the strategy. Like wearing the hats of the CEO is not just marketing. Marketing, I think a lot of people, especially the tactical strategy on whether it's social or running ads, I don't do any of that. But I know the strategy and how to pull a team together to execute the strategy that is required. And I looked at my Gene Keys, for those of you that are familiar of many different spheres that they have, there's one particular one that talks about your life purpose. And my life purpose is about mindfulness. And how I got connected to Sean is kind of synchronistic as well. I don't believe it's just from our hustle of my team doing outreach and somehow found Sean. It's just some synchronistic connected us together. Like my purpose is about mindfulness. And it connected me to Sean that runs mindfulness exercises. How beautiful is that? There isn't any role that's advertised as a fractional CEO. Because normally CEO roles are extremely rare. Number one, they don't advertise, they may get headhunted. But number two, even if they advertise, they need someone like full on to be there. And one of the criteria I also wanted is I wanted to work from home. I don't want an hour travel there, an hour travel back. And I've got narcolepsy, I fall asleep. It's difficult for me to stay awake all the time. And to get the best out of me, like just working nonstop for 6 hours or 8 hours, that's not the best that I can get out of me. I have short bursts of brilliance. And if I take some time, whether it's just walking in nature for half an hour or take some breaks, that's how I know that I can get the best out of myself. So I wanted to work remote. And working with Sean, it was so perfect. Actually, one of the clients I worked with prior to that, it was telling me that, hey, Gary, you're like the missing piece to a lot of these companies. You're like the fractional CEO. And so that kind of like gave me the belief and inside my identity of who I am. And that led me to helping Sean. And then we worked for just over a year. And again, due to certain circumstances, it just came to a natural conclusion on both sides. Yeah, there was another company that one of the guests I interviewed on a podcast, I was really drawn to his story and his journey and what he's trying to do to impact the world, to raise the consciousness. That's still in line with my purpose. But the challenge with that is that company was going through, well, I've been helping them on the side fractionally as the CEO while I was still helping this mindfulness company. And so when I finish up with this company, it's like, well, I can actually help them full time now, but then they don't have the ability to pay me until business perform better. And this is where the surrender and control comes from. I'm no different to a lot of you guys watching the video. I still have like real world expenses and financial commitments as a father, as a provider, that I need to provide. And so how does it work to generate? Because ideally, we would turn around the business within a few months and would generate profits, and that will pay for myself. But I know that this journey in business is never certain. It can take longer. So it's like, I just feel really drawn to this company. So I surrender. Just surrender. Give it a few months. Give it 3 months. See where we head towards. So in that 3 months, I didn't get paid a single cent, and I was okay with that. But you know, the universe works in beautiful ways. Just as my income went down, when Trump got elected, my crypto portfolio, it kept going up. So whatever financial shortfalls I had, I managed to recoup it from the crypto going up and selling it to offset my financial commitments. So wow, just when you trust, and this has happened numerous times in my life, just when one side, the money goes out, another side somehow miraculously comes in. Just like one time that my wife wanted a certain gift that I didn't feel it was financially prudent to get for her. As a guy, it's very logical, you know. And we were extremely low on cash. But again, there was a strong calling to say, surrender. And then within a couple of weeks, my mom called me to say that, hey, you've got inheritance money. Where do you want it to be deposited to? So, wow. Like, how crazy is this? I didn't even think that is possible. Never had inheritance money in my whole life. Never expected any to come through. So anyway, working with this company, with the events around the world. And then another thing is that there was a calling. Like, I've been following Tony Robbins, supporting him and his events and as a senior leader as part of his organization. Been doing this for probably like close to 10 years. There was a calling to say, you know, Gary, your time is up. Logically, there's certain reasons for it, that it became less enjoyable because a lot of the events are over Zoom versus meeting people in person. And as the organization become bigger and there are hundreds of thousands and millions of people joining the Zoom, and a lot of new leaders and that they have in place to quality control, they put more rules in, which is very understandable. But it's just become less and less fun. There's less and less creativity or just my self-expression of who I want to be in serving other people. So when I joined this other company that did events around the world, they do breath work, dance, and meditation. I remember the very first event. It's pretty much like only a month when I decided to officially announce my retirement from Tony Robbins events. This door opened up to join this company at the events. And from that event, I remember the very first event when the audience is doing breath work, I went to give the people a blessing. Blessing is an energetic healing process. The guys that run the event, they say, you know what, we trust that you'll be knowing what to do, doing the right thing, and who will we say that is the wrong thing to do? And I just thought, wow, like something that I've attached to for 10 years in the Tony Robbins environment, which I get a lot of my human needs, my satisfaction met, of my need for contribution. When I closed one door, there wasn't like another plan that I had put in place on how to transition, but then another door automatically opened for me to get even a deeper fulfillment in serving the people at my highest expression. And I get to bond, have deep conversations, get to travel around the world, meeting real people, giving people real hug, and advancing some of the modalities that I had not being as well versed, sound healing, and doing more breath work, meditation, and using other biohack as well. And so it's like I wouldn't have planned it. I couldn't have planned it any better. After not being able to support my family financially from that role, eventually I had to like dial it back, still kind of helping them when I can. But it was through that person running the organization introduced me to someone else that someone was doing a book and they wanted to interview other successful entrepreneurs, and that person happened to be in Australia. So he connected me to that person, and in November I met up with that person for the book interview. And the minute that we met up, we got on like a house on fire. We really connected, and our personality profile, our strengths, in our skill set, we really complement ourselves. And before long, we're talking about how can I help the business scale. So they've done well as a coaching business. But yeah, how do we scale to a bigger organization, and especially one that doesn't rely on the founder to be there? And as you know, like if you run a business, to find a CEO to step into your place from nowhere is extremely difficult. It's not easy. But I know how to run an organization of that size, especially. I know how to run a coaching business. I know how to take the marketing and the growth engine for that business to the next level. And like it's almost like I'm the perfect candidate. So then I started helping this company as the fractional CEO. So now I started helping this coaching business to grow. And the team is so beautiful. I love working with them as well. I was enjoying what I did. I was helping them grow. And it was growing quite successfully, scaling quite successfully. Yet it felt like I was working as the fractional CEO. And there was a few incidents that really shifted this. Number one, there was a documentary on Netflix somebody like shared with me that I ended up watching. It's called In Waves and War. And it talks about Navy SEALs. These Navy SEALs, they obviously, you know that Navy SEALs are known to be the elite of the elites. And in the discipline, the mindset, the willpower, and how they are physically as well, physically, mentally, emotionally. Because at war, especially intense situation, you need to be hyper vigilant on how you manage your state. If you lose your cool, it could not only cost your own life, but potentially the life of your teammates, of your comrades, of the people you care about. So it talks about these Navy SEALs post either by choice they decided to pull out of being a Navy SEAL, or I think from memory, most of them, not by choice, but by some accidents, some injury, that they have to pull out of the Navy SEALs. And after that, life became difficult, PTSD, and a lot of them got into heavy drinking, and a lot of them, well, I don't think it's a lot of them, but quite a few of them. The documentary followed mainly 4 to 9 people, primarily focused on 4 people, but in the greater story had around 9 people. And the main 4 character, I remember at least 2 of them basically saying that after a night of heavy drinking, they had the gun pulled to the head, ready to take their own lives. Inside the family, they were miserable with their family. And the family find it so hard to be with them. So eventually one of the wives, and by the way, all the meds, the pharmaceutical meds, none of them helped. Therapy, counseling, none of them helped as well. One of the wife to the main character that's going through this found that there's a clinic in, I think, like Mexico that offered the plant medicine of Iboga and 5-MeO DMT. And reluctantly, the husband went to that retreat and turned his own life around, resolved a lot of years of trauma within like 1 or 2 sessions. It's done. And then they got so excited knowing how transformative this work is, they introduced it to quite a lot of other Navy SEALs as well and vets within this documentary, went along, and again, each one of them healed themselves, completely changed their life within a very short time, just 1 or 2 sessions, it's completely done. Wow, I looked at, for Navy SEALs, they are the elite of the elite that's able to manage their own states. And yet, they find it so difficult in overcoming what they call PTSD, depression, anxiety, suffering. And then they shared the stats. It said since September 11, 7,000 US people in the military have died in combat. But 30,000 vets during the same period died from suicide. And a lot of the suicide may not even be reported, so that number could be actually lower than what it is. So more than 4 times people are dying from depression, from suicide, than from in combat. I had no idea. Like, I've heard numbers that male suicide is much higher than females and all that, but I didn't know how big the issue is. And after that, there was a couple of podcasts in Australia. Kerwin Rae, he's like the Tony Robbins of Australia. And quite a few people internationally knows him as well, but big people, big social media following. Every time he puts on events, like hundreds of people, and a lot of people like looks at him as the inspiration. I've had the privilege of knowing Kerwin and spending a little bit of time with him. Like, great man, great teaching. Like all human beings, we go through our own stuff. And for him, he went through his own stuff that eventually passed away. We don't know what happened, but the speculation is he may have taken his own life. But this is not about going into the speculation. During one of the last podcasts that he appeared in, roughly a year before he passed away, or maybe a few months, but he shared that he was going through depression. And I think it's more of a mental thing that he was going through, maybe some conditions that there's some label, medical label to it. But regardless of what the condition is, he said that he's done training with the Navy SEALs and the Army with the best of the best, as well as doing decades of personal development. And yet, at the time that he was suffering the depression, nothing helped. Nothing helped. And I say this all the time. It's like when I have been triggered in the moments, whether it's my wife like raising her voice at me and I'm reacting, it doesn't matter what skills that we learn from personal developments. If we can't pull it out at the time, what's the use of it, right? So with Kerwin, when he shared that, it really hits home. I can relate to that. And then he said that the only thing that made a difference, that is embodied presence. Embodied presence. And I remembered the coaching company that I'm helping, the founder, his name is Bodhi Aldrich. And that's his main teaching. Embodied presence. Kerwin Rae said nothing helped except for embodied presence. And the main thing that Bodhi teaches is embodied presence. What is embodied presence? It's not about like meditating and like feel good for 5 minutes. It's not about, hey, just being present, like and paying attention to someone. It's truly connected to your body. Because he said like 80% of changes happen from the head down. A lot of the times that when we want to make a change is from the head level. We're trapped in our head bubble, right? Anyway, it's like, well, embodied presence is so powerful that it's almost like giving us this level of awareness that none of the self-help really teaches, which most of the self-help teaches you about skills and strategy and maybe communications tactics and how to better understand yourself and your partners, maybe a bit of NLP, maybe anchoring some new identity. But all of that is still have the presumption that you need to have the awareness of what's going on in the time of crisis or in the heat of the moment. It's like, wow. At that same time, we just rebranded from Bodhi Aldrich to True Freedom Leadership. And in that moment, like there was a shift, Gary, you're the CEO of True Freedom Leadership. Rather than this being a company that you help to grow, this is your own little baby. This can be your own baby. If all you do for the rest of your life is to help to spread true freedom to the world, especially to men, which is what this company mainly help with, knowing that so many men are suffering quietly, because it's not something that we typically share. This is a life worth living. So now I want to tie it back to the main theme of this video, of my own surrender experiments and the whole control versus flow. Could I have crafted this journey over the last 3 years of just surrender to responding to a job recommendation on LinkedIn? By the way, I didn't even pretty up my CV. Like the first interview that the founder, the CEO, like, why will you be looking for a job? I deliberately didn't dress up for it. I thought if I'm meant to be having this role, I don't want to pretty myself and impress someone to get a job. If I'm meant for this to happen, it's going to happen. So that's more like the surrender flow. It's not trying to control the outcome by using your clever tactics and skills. And even for this video, like there's some certain nuances on, hey, when you start a YouTube video, you should have a hook, you should have a promise, you have like 10 different things. I deliberately want it to be not very edited, not very scripted, well, not scripted at all. It's just based on raw and real of what comes through versus trying to control. So if you are the only person this video reach, then maybe that's just perfect. You're the perfect person that needed to hear this message. And if it's 5 people, 50 people, 500 people, whatever the number is lack of the attachments. I understand that the reality of the society that we live in, money drives a lot of things. And as the man is a provider, we need to provide. So I'm not saying that if you don't have a single dollar to your bank account, just do nothing and work for free. And that's kind of like the two things that people typically jump from. One is I need to control everything. The other side, I just flow. I just almost like a spiritual bypass, and I just surrender, do nothing, and wait for the universe to come. What I'm advocating is this dance, the move between the surrender and the responsibility. You may have heard of a saying that trust in Allah or trust in Jesus, but still tie up the camel. Like you don't do nothing at all, but the whole surrender is flow with doing what you feel is right. So in that moment, when I first saw the LinkedIn ad, it felt right to respond to it. And when the 3 months was up in that company, it felt right to move on. I get excited if I know that for the rest of my life or my career is helping True Freedom Leadership grow. That juices me up. But if it's only for a season, then so be it as well. You look at this world, so many species of plants, fungi, animals, humans, microorganisms, all coexisted together. We didn't create, as human, we didn't create any of this. And it's more beautiful than if we try to design a computer game thinking about how many species, or maybe a movie, how many. It would take us so long to even think of maybe 5, 10, 15, 50, 100 different alien species, right? But these are like gazillion species coexisting together. Life is just so much bigger than what our ego mind can comprehend. If this video resonates with you, make sure you subscribe to this page. It will really make me happy to have an extra subscriber and follower, an audience to share this message with. And on the next video I'm going to record, I'm going to share with you the success mountain that many of you may resonate with, on how to get more achievement, how to build a better lifestyle, and what is the path to going on to this freedom mountain that not many people, especially society, talks about. This mountain that not only can you get the external success, but the inner freedom, the relationship freedom, and the outer freedom as well. Thank you.